Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Copenhagen in Denmark and revisit a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, many different styles, and this brewery was actually one of the first Danish craft breweries that I came across. But I think it's fair to say they are one of the best known Danish craft breweries, and they're also known for being very prolific in what they do. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy. It's one that you don't come across all that often, although I guess we do have to call this one a sub-style if you like, and I have actually tried this beer before in one of their venues, but I thought, I need to get a can of this one and just sit down and review it for you here on the channel. So that's what we're doing just now, but hopefully this beer's as good as I remember, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to return to Mikkeller, the famous Danish gypsy brewery, or one of them, we should say, because Toul and Evil Twin, I guess, could count in that regard as well. But this one is called Lewis and Henry. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is a Japanese rice lager. So yeah, I bought this beer at the RampantLionReviews restaurant in Nørrebro, and I had a can of it actually when I made my video there. So if you want to go and check out my out and about video that I did at RampantLionReviews, you can see me do a very quick review of this one actually. But yeah, as I say, this is a beer that I wanted to get to do a proper sit down review of. So yeah, always nice to try a Japanese rice lager as well. We did have the one that was in the blue can from these guys a couple of months back actually, and that was also very, very nice. I do remember that this beer was a little bit more hoppy and bitter than that one, if I remember rightly, but this is pretty nice. So yeah, very much looking forward to trying this one, as I said. But let's crack on then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Mikkeller before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but quite regularly because I live in the south of Sweden and I go over to Copenhagen very often. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Mikkeller once again then. So, as I've told you previously, Mikkeller are the famous Danish gypsy brewery, and they were founded back in 2006 by Christian Keller and Mikkel Bjergso, whom of course it takes its name from. But the company is now run exclusively by Bjergso, who used to be a physics and maths teacher, whereas Christian Keller went on to work for Soundhouse magazine, if I remember correctly. But again, these guys were very influenced by the American craft beer movement, and they basically started out as the homebrewing experimentations of Christian and Mikkel and grew from there. But for a long time they didn't have their own brewery, but brewed at a variety of host breweries in the US, Norway, Scotland and Belgium. For a long time most of their beer was brewed at the De Proef brewery in Lochristenhoeve near Ghent in Belgium. And they still actually brew a fair number of things down there from what I understand as well. But their home base as such at this time was the Mikkeller bar on Victoriagade, which is near the meatpacking district in Copenhagen, not too far away from Copenhagen Central Station, and I do recommend that you go and check the place out. But they also had a collaboration bar in the early days with Toul, which was called Toul and Friends. And of course the two guys that started Toul, Tobias Emil Jensen and Tore Gainter, they were actually students of Mikkel's, and they used to brew together in the school kitchens, which was pretty cool. But yeah, Toul released their first beer, and it was a collaboration with Mikkeller, and they've gone from strength to strength as well. So these two companies were the ones that, along with Evil Twin, were the ones who really started off the whole kind of Danish gypsy brewing movement. But of course the company has evolved a lot since then. But over the following years they continued to gypsy brew. In April of 2016 they took over AleSmith's former brewery in San Diego in California, over on the west coast of the US, and this was after they had moved on to a larger space. And then the following year in 2017 they announced that they were going to establish a second brewery at Citi Field, which is home of the New York Mets in New York City, but this closed in October of 2020. I think it's been taken over by somebody else if I remember correctly. But they now also have a location in Copenhagen, which is called Bauhavn, which is in Refstalone, if I'm pronouncing that properly, but probably not. But this is where they experiment with sour beers. Up there, they've got 12 oak fodders that range from 3,000 to 7,000 litres, and they've got many different California Chardonnay barrels in which they age the beers. But the beers are brewed at Warpigs, which is a collaboration brew pub that they have with Three Floyds from Munster in Indiana, near Chicago over in the US. That's also worth checking out as well. But then they're taken up to Bauhavn to be aged and blended, and of course they've got a lab there as well where they can isolate lots of new strains of wild yeast and things. And there's also a tap room up there as well that you can check out too. But they've got various different venues around Copenhagen these days. There's about 4 or 5 different RampantLionReviews restaurants. They also had the general store for a while. There's the Warpigs Brew Pub. There is the Mikkeller Bauhavn. There's the Mikkeller and Friends Bar. There's also the Mikkeller and Friends Bottle Shop, which is in Turvehallen, if I remember the name rightly. And yeah, there's various Mikkeller things all over the place actually, but I would say check out the Mikkeller and Friends bar, and also check out the Mikkeller bar on Victoria Gade. Warpigs, of course, is a very good place to go for your dinner. But they've got bars all over the world as well. In Europe, there's ones in Barcelona, Madrid, Berlin, Warsaw, Bucharest, Stockholm, Tórshavn and the Faroe Islands. There was one in Reykjavik for a while too. There's one in Tokyo, there's one in Seoul, Taipei, Shanghai. I think there's one in Singapore these days as well. And they've got various locations in San Diego in the US, and also in Bangkok in Thailand as well actually. But yeah, these days from what I understand, they're also brewing a lot of their beer at Total City, which is in Svininge, in the middle of Zealand in Copenhagen, and of course that is Total's own brewery. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Mikkeller. There's a lot of information out there about this brewery, but like I say, these guys were one of the ones who really helped kick off the Danish craft beer scene. Yeah, probably the most well-known Danish breweries I think would be Mikkeller, Total, Amager Brewhus were the ones who really kind of set up shop in Copenhagen, of course, as well. And then Evil Twin moved over to the States in quite early doors too. But yeah, really interesting brewery. I've had many nice beers from them over the years, and I always enjoy trying new things from them. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about Mikkeller for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, pardon me, to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. I believe they've got a different set of social medias as well for their brewery in San Diego, so keep your eye out for that. But as always, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and actually have a look at this beer. So I'll just let you have a little look at the can before we open it up. As you can see, that typical Mikkeller design there. There you can see Lewis and Henry, Japanese rice lager. It tells you a little bit on the back here as well, but it says in 1971 Panthella was developed by the world-renowned Danish architect Werner Panton. With its soft, light and geometric silhouette, Panthella continues to serve as a beautiful example of Panton's timelessly appealing design that captivates spaces. In 2021, Louis Poulsen is introducing a new medium-sized table lamp and a new distinctive brass metallized finish as a tribute to Panthella and its 50th anniversary. So yeah, interesting actually, I do like that. But yeah, you can see there is the thing. So this has obviously been brewed to celebrate Louis Poulsen making this up. I'm not sure where the Henry comes from actually. I'm not sure if this is one of the Mikkeller characters or if it's maybe the brewer at Mikkeller these days, but yeah, interesting nonetheless. But this is a half-litre can. As we said earlier, it comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is a Japanese rice lager. So yeah, plain silver top on the can there. I bought this one, as I said earlier, at the RampantLionReviews restaurant in Nørrebro in Copenhagen. There's various RampantLionReviews restaurants around at the moment. But yeah, let's crack this guy open and we'll see how we get on. Yeah, this should be. Oh, a little bit of carbonation on this one, but I think it should be alright as we get it out and into the glass. Yeah. That does look very nice. Still got maybe about 30-40% of it in the bottom of the can there, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. But anyway, as you can see, and as you would expect, This one has poured a lovely, very bright, pale golden straw yellow. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, and you can see it does have a little touch of a kind of natural haze to it. But overall, it is pretty clear. Before the head disappears, it poured with somewhere between a half and a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. You can see that quite nicely on this beer here. But yeah, lovely kind of bright, pale golden straw colour to this one. It looks exactly as you would expect from a rice lager, to be honest with you. Now, the rice lager is a really interesting thing. For those of you who don't know, in Japan they have, well, probably you will have heard of Japanese sake, but it's actually like a kind of rice wine, but it's brewed in the same way that beer is, really. You know, it's a single ferment, it's a, you know, the same type of fermentation and things like that, basically using the sugars that you get out of rice. They mill the rice, put it down, put it in a mash, and then basically extract the sugars from it, and there you go. So yeah, Japanese sake is really interesting. I've not reviewed a Japanese sake for you in quite some time, but if you are interested to learn a little bit more about that, you can go to the channel homepage and check out my playlist of Japanese sakes that I've reviewed. Love Japanese sake. But yeah, rice lagers. I think my love of rice lagers comes from reviewing those Japanese sakes. But rice is a very interesting adjunct. I've had it in a few kind of New England IPAs and West Coast IPAs. It can give you this really nice oily character to the malt base, of course. So yeah, something I would like to experiment a little bit more with. But yeah, not rice lagers are not a style that you come across all that often in Europe, at least, but they're definitely popular out in Asia, of course. So yeah, maybe it's just to do with the price of rice over here and getting good rice to do it. Who knows? But yeah, lovely looking beer, this one. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put into the beer is also going to affect that as well. But yeah, the rice in this case isn't going to do too much to the colour. That is our main adjunct. So yeah, exactly as you would expect with this one. You could compare the colour to like a Pilsner, a Helles lager from Germany, or of course a Svetli from the Czech Republic. Remember, the definition of lager is that it undergoes it takes a bottom fermenting yeast and it undergoes fermentation between about 10 to 12 degrees Celsius. Ales, of course, have top fermenting yeasts and they ferment between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius. So yeah, I'm not going to convert that to Fahrenheit because that's just pointless. Just use Celsius. It's based on water, guys. Come on. But anyway, there we go. Let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. I'm very curious about this. Oh yeah, that's very, very nice. What I'm going to say about this one is that it's very much like a sort of German Munich Helles, but you can smell that nice big oily, slightly sweet, ricey character coming out of it. Lovely smelling beer, just as I remember. I do remember, I will say, I don't remember liking this one quite as much as the rice lager that came in the blue can, but I'm not sure if they've done that one in a wee while. But of course, some of these Mikkeller beers come back and forth, and I'm guessing, you know, they'll have to tie it in with the rice harvest over in Japan, actually. But yeah, aroma wise, this is very, very nice. So let's break the aroma down for you and just describe it a wee bit more in depth. So backbone of this beer, you do get a little bit of that you do get a little tiny touch of a kind of fresh bread crust in there, some smooth white bready character as well, which is great. Yeah, lovely smooth white bready character in there, which is nice. It's kind of like a soft but still quite fluffy white bread. You do get 1 or 2 elements of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of note in this, but you can really smell just the smooth kind of oily character of the rice. It's very difficult to describe actually what rice, you know, the actual smell of rice, because some of them can give you like little tiny hints of apricot and sultana and gooseberry and stuff like this. But the nose of the rice in this one for me, the rice that I'm getting in this one is actually quite it really comes across as being quite how would we say, it really is just very, very kind of just, it's just that nice kind of oily smooth sort of thing. It doesn't come across overly much like sake, but yeah, you can smell there is a wee bit of that sweet oily gooseberry note to the rice in there. Underneath that, I'm actually starting to get from the yeast, I'm actually starting to get a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker and woody note out of this one. So that's quite interesting. Your maltbase, as we say, bread crust, some white bread, a little bit of an oily, ricey character in there, some McVitie's digestive biscuits and yeast is giving you a wee touch of a woody, kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing. So yeah, quite an interesting aroma in that perspective. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, this is quite interesting too. But yeah, the hoppy side of the beer is actually still quite fresh. Obviously, I've had this beer for about a month, for about 2 months, something like that. Actually, maybe just before Christmas, so a wee bit longer than that. It was just before Christmas that I bought this one, if I remember rightly. Maybe, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, the green component, there's a little touch of earthiness to this beer. There's a wee tiny touch of earthiness in there. I'd be very curious to know what hops they've used in this. It says it's got a little bit of acidulated malt in it, which is quite interesting. I just noticed that there. So that means that it's going to give you a little bit of a sour character as well. That's probably why it's different from the other one, because I don't think you would use acidulated malt in the other. I don't think they used acidulated malt in the other one right enough. But yeah, the hoppy side of things, there's a wee bit of earthiness in there, a little touch of a herbal character. You pick up a little bit of floral aromaticity, but for me, the green component really leans towards a kind of slightly citrusy, zesty, grassy type thing. So I do like how that goes together. So aroma wise, the green component of this one is pretty nice, but a wee bit more earthy and herbal than I remember. So yeah, take that as you will. So fruity side of things then, as I said, the rice in this beer gives you a little bit of a kind of gooseberry, maybe very slightly sultana type thing, just a very, very subtle fruity character. But from the hops, I think you do get a wee touch of that kind of dry sultana sort of thing in there. By sultanas, I mean like white, green, grapey character. There's a wee bit of that going on. There is a wee touch of gooseberry, but you're getting a bit of a kind of oily, peary character out of this one as well. I don't know if they would use like a little bit of Soriachi Ace or something like that in this, but I think that would give the grassiness just a wee bit of zestiness. Soriachi Ace, of course, was developed in Japan, but I think it's been grown over in the US for the most part since then, and of course with the different soil profiles and water profiles and all of this, the Soriachi Ace that you get from America is quite different from what you'll get in Japan itself. But I really have no idea how big a crop you get of Soriachi Ace from Japan. You don't hear about it all that often. But I think that's everything we really need to say about the aroma of this beer. As I always say, take a wee bit of time just to ponder it over before you get stuck into the beer. But I think it's about time that we tried this then. So this one is the Lewis and Henry, a 5% Japanese rice lager brewed to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Pantella, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So let's get stuck into this and see how we go. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kampai. Yeah, that is pretty nice. Definitely a wee bit more sort of crackery and biscuity and bread crusty than I remember it being. So that is pretty interesting for sure. So yeah, for me that is really pretty nice. So this beer gets a thumbs up from me. Without question. Definitely the other one, I remember the other rice lager, the blue can one, being a little bit sweeter and more oily than this. This one has a wee bit more of that kind of, it definitely has a wee bit more of a kind of yeasty, almost slightly farmhousey sort of thing going on with it, and that is quite interesting. It's definitely got a wee bit more of a kind of grainy, just a grainy, bready, earthy sort of thing. So yeah, I like how that goes together. But yeah, nice oily kind of smooth lager beer as well. Yeah, this is quite interesting. I'm going to enjoy. This is just going to be a nice kind of sipper for a wee while. I might film another review with a bigger beer a bit later on. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to get this one done because it's been sitting there for a wee while. But yeah, it's a lovely, lovely tasting beer, this one. So let's break the flavour down for you and just describe it a wee bit more. So the backbone of this beer, when you take it in, obviously, we're talking middle third of your palate, you do get a bit of that kind of you know, fresh bread, crusty bread sort of thing coming out of it. On top of that, you know, well, the further into the aftertaste you go, in fairness, toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you start to get a wee bit of woodiness in there. And toward the back, you get a bit more of the Jacob's cream cracker. So yeah, bread crust kind of embedded with a little bit of, yeah, bread crust embedded with a kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing, and a wee bit of a, you know, a wee bit of a more kind of woody sort of flavour toward the front. So that's quite interesting. Let's go on with it and see what we get. Yeah, on top of that, you definitely get a wee bit of a slightly white bready character out of it, but definitely not as much as you would have thought from the the aroma. Right enough, this beer is a lot less bready than I would have thought it was going to be from the aroma. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but yeah, just food for thought. So yeah, very interesting in that sense. So a wee bit of breadiness in there. Then on top of that, you can feel the sort of biscuity elements and the ricey character just mixing together. So yeah, on top of the white bready character for sure, you can feel this nice kind of oily sort of circle just sitting there in the just sitting in the middle third of your palate there. So yeah, nice big oily kind of ricey kind of thing. That lingers there. The rice actually has a wee touch of sweetness to it, and as I say, you get a wee bit of this kind of gooseberry, I don't know how else to describe it, a bit of that kind of oily gooseberry sort of flavour out of the rice, and that lingers into the aftertaste a wee bit. But if you go into the dead centre of your palate, you get a wee bit, just a really concentrated wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive you know, sweet biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, the way that that goes together is very, very nice. So yeah, nice wee bit of concentrated McVitie's digestive biscuit. As you move further out from that, as I say, as you move further out from that, you start to get the more kind of grainy side of that McVitie's digestive biscuit as well. So yeah, it's really interesting how the rice and the kind of McVitie's biscuit kind of things get together in this. But as you move toward the back of that middle third of your palate again, you do start to get a wee bit of a, little bit of a kind of Pilsner malty type thing out there. So I would not be surprised if there was a wee bit of kind of Pilsner malt in this, because you can just feel that dry sort of crisp thing towards the back of that middle third of your palate. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of your tongue in this. But on the to the back third of your tongue then, border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in this one. You can just feel that there, a little bit of that kind of bready, bread crusty sort of thing. But then into the back of that back third, or on that back third of your palate, you can feel the kind of bread crusty notes get a little bit more grainy. On top of that, there's a little bit of a more kind of thick, white bready layer coming out of it as well. And yeah, as I say, a little bit of a bread crusty thing, more of a, as I say, a little bit of a thicker white bready character there, but again with a wee bit more graininess to it. And I can feel a wee bit of the kind of what I suspect is Pilsner malt just creeping into the back third of the palate there as well. But on top of that, you can feel the more kind of, more yeasty, you can definitely feel a little bit more of the kind of doughy, yeasty sort of thing in this one. And again, you can feel that it's quite like a grainy bread crusty character. There's a wee bit of woodiness in there, like it is, you know, Jacob's cream cracker with a kind of thick doughy bready sort of thing in there. So yeah, I really like how all of that goes together for sure. So yeah, on that side of things it is pretty, it really is pretty interesting for sure. So that bit thicker doughy bread, a wee bit of kind of more grainy bread crusty character on the outside, and a wee bit of a kind of woody crackery sort of thing to it. But yeah, on the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is a little bit taller, and then as you come further forward, the flavour's just condensed down a wee bit, and squashed together. So yeah, the way that this beer goes about its business, I think, is very, very nice. So it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. Yeah, malty yeasty side of things is pretty solid. Let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little touch more herbal, and as you push towards the kind of front corners of your palate, there's definitely a wee bit more of a kind of floral aromatic sort of thing to this one. But then round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a lighter grassiness in there, and yeah, I think the green component of this one really leans towards a more kind of floral aromatic sort of thing. The grassy zestiness in this beer as well is pretty nice too, but I think, yeah, the green component leans a bit more towards that floral side of things. I'm interested as well because I didn't really get much of the acidulated malt out of this, but let's look at the front third of your palate and the fruity side of things. So, yeah, borderline between front third and middle third of your palate. You've got a little bit of a more kind of bread crusty build up there. Then the base of that back third of the front third of your palate, sorry, you can feel a wee bit of breadiness under there, but it actually feels like the kind of oily ricey characters form in the base there. Then on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters come out from the hops. So that's quite interesting. So the base of that front third of your palate is almost more like a kind of smooth, slightly gooseberry flavoured rice kind of thing. So that's interesting. But toward the back of that front third of your palate, you get a wee bit of a more kind of concentrated citrusy character. But yeah, you'll get wee elements of like a slightly sultana type note there, and then as you move further and further forward, it develops into this kind of oily, peary, slightly appley sort of thing. Then just behind the very front tip of the tongue, it's a little bit of a more kind of it's a little bit more of that kind of lemony, limey, grassy, zesty sort of thing you're getting out of it. But yeah, I think this beer goes together pretty well, so it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. I think this is a very nicely done pardon me, I think this is a very, very nicely done rice lager, but definitely a wee bit more kind of yeasty and malty than the other one I remember in the blue can. The one in the blue can is I think is a bit better than this in my opinion, but yeah, that's definitely worth trying if you come across it. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that in terms of flavour description. Let's round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So mouthfeel wise, I think it's fair to say that this beer is it's at the top end of light body. The carbonation is very smooth. It's definitely got a degree of slickness to it, a slightly oily character, but that will be because of the rice. So yeah, I do like that about this one. In terms of the IBUs, I think we're talking, you know, a sort of 20 IBU at maximum with this one. I have had this beer sitting a little while, so maybe the IBU has died down a little bit, so take that with a pinch of salt. And remember, IBU count is my weakest point of beer reviewing. I've said that in many videos, so always take it with a pinch of salt. Malty base in this one, as we say, it's got a bit of graininess, a bit of smoothness, a bit of sweetness, and a bit of an oily character. And you've also got some really nice fruity elements to it as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes about its business, I think, is nice, and it's definitely worth trying. I'm not sure if you'll see this beer again, but this is one that, as I say, I tried it in the RampantLionReviews Biru, and I just wanted to get a can of it to review, so here we are. But yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Mikkeller. Check out my social media, check out their social media, and we'll do more reviews soon. But yeah, this was the Lewis and Henry, a 5% Japanese lager brewed to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Pantella, a famous Danish architect. So yeah, till the next time, Sláinte, Skål, and cheers. Check out some Mikkeller beers.